there's this sensation in life when there is an overbearing force for that which is noble and that which is rightful to take a step back, to not provoke. And what we have in today's class is sort of the fundamental commandment of embracing that thrust of bold energy. And not to do it unconsciously, but to do it consciously and conscientiously. Because of industrialization and globalization, there are parts of the world that are becoming unlivable. And in these parts of the world that are becoming unlivable, the rule of law is becoming, survival of the dominant. And then what happens is that the less dominant need to migrate to find more friendly land, more congenial environments. And what happens when that takes place is that the people that are already in place in less egregious locations begin to feel like they're being invaded, and they react. And this is what is happening throughout the world today, caused by drought and famine and wars, where people are having to migrate in order to survive. And those lands into which people are migrating are oftentimes taking on a position of, we own this, get out of our land, right? Human beings are the only creature throughout nature, whether it's plant or animal, that takes on this attitude, this ownership attitude. And we weren't always this way. Up until the middle centuries, when the Great Enclosure took place, you could move to wherever you wanted to move to, and you could squat on the land, and you could raise your crops. And then the aristocracy decided that they owned all the land and that they were going to enclose it and tax those that were living on it. So if you study your deep history in geography and in sociology, you will also notice that that's the same history that's happening in metaphysics, in the science of consciousness. And so this bold energy needs to come from within you, and it needs to be righteous. And so you need to engage both the universal ego and the inclusive ego, and disregard the exclusive ego, which is the child's ego. Most human beings throughout the world are living in the child's ego, and that's why ego gets a bad name. But the inclusive ego and the universal ego gives you solution from the universal mind, and the inclusive ego gives you the compassion to look at all humanity as being equal and all in need of whatever they're in need of. And so when we come to this burst of bold energy, it's a seed, or what is known in Sanskrit as a bij, B-E-E-J. It's a bij energy. And this bold energy is not an energy that attacks another. It's the energy that finds collective solution for everyone. That's what a seed does. A seed is programmed with that embrace of that incredible bold energy, the bold energy of infinity, because this seed, let's just say it's a maple tree seed. That seed is going to give birth to a maple tree, but in that seed of that maple tree are all the seeds, the programming for all the seeds of every year that that maple tree is going to be alive. And the seeds of the seeds, and the seeds of the seeds of the seeds. It literally goes on infinitely. And so what we're looking at here is we're looking at this bold energy as being bij energy. And when we live in that bij energy, that bold energy, we ground into the earth, not the superficial conditioning of a nation on the earth. We are earthlings. We are human earthlings at the seed level, regardless of our skin color, regardless of our language. We are bij earthlings. And what ends up happening is that when we get to that place in our consciousness, when we arrive at that conclusion in our consciousness, we begin to gain access to all of the other aspects of that seed. And some of the aspects of that seed, when we recognize, when we know it again, that we are just a bij earthling, we are just a earth seed, then all of a sudden the earth begins to mirror the cosmic silver thread, and all of a sudden we have this earthly cosmic relationship and coordination. And that's when we are able to find the truisms beyond the mundane, beyond the superficial. And this is, in fact, our soul's relationship in the equation. So, in other words, when we begin to look at others as equals, regardless of their point of origin, we start to look at others from the soul's perspective. When we look at others, whatever it is, from the soul's perspective begins to expand like a seed inside of us. It's a path. Compassion is a path to enlightenment. Compassion is a path to enlightenment. And this is not irregardless or disregardless of appropriateness. This is regarding the ability of humanity to be compassionate toward all life. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to, after we tune in, we're going to do a brief Kriya that is all about planting ourselves like a seed into that bold energy of planet Earth, so that we can gain that as nourishment, as nutrition. So, take a couple of notes in your journal and let's get ready. We'll tune in and do our Kriya.